What's up, everyone? Tera Roberts here with 4 for 4, and today we are talking players I regret not drafting sooner. These are guys I wish I had more shares of because their ADPs are on the rise and everyone wants a piece. We'll start off with a player who I just can't quit, Elijah Moore. In 2021 and 2022, I was a full-blown Elijah Moore truther. I came into every podcast, video, and conversation locked and loaded with my favorite Elijah Moore rookie stat of his epic 5-game stretch, weeks 9 through 13, where he had 28 receptions on 45 targets for 392 yards, 5 touchdowns, averaging 20 fantasy points per game in PPR, making him wide receiver 3 in average points per game over that time period before suffering a season-ending injury. It was a small sample size, but it was beautiful, and I was a true believer. Even after the Jets drafted Garrett Wilson, I told myself, that's okay. This is just Jamar Chase, T. Higgins 2.0. But the reality was painful. Instead of the next T. Higgins, we got a player who was literally iced out of the offense, and he finished the season with less than 500 yards and just 1 touchdown. But Elijah Moore's new home in Cleveland could be perfect. First of all, it helps having an organization that actually wants you, and reports out of OTA are glowing. Now, you have to take off-season reports with a grain of salt because the majority of players do in fact look good. But the upside for Moore is huge because Cleveland is adjusting their offense to push more pass volume, and if Moore is Deshaun Watson's wide receiver 2, he will crush his ADP, even if that ADP is creeping up as we speak. Another player whose ADP is literally shooting off like a cannon is Calvin Ridley. I wrote an article way back in April called Wide Receiver 3s with Wide Receiver 1 upside, and Calvin Ridley was on that list. I promise. He was actually going as a Wide Receiver 3 at one time. And now he is actually going within the first 4 rounds of fantasy drafts. Insane. I wish that I had drafted Ridley earlier on literally all my teams because there is no way to get him now without being aggressive in drafts. I guess it took a while for people to remember that this is Calvin Ridley, the Calvin Ridley that finished as wide receiver 5 in PPR with 90 receptions on 143 targets for over 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2020. Now, I know what you're thinking. Tera, you just referenced 2020 stats. That is borderline Michael Thomas delusion. Are we setting ourselves up again? Can Ridley get back to peak form after nearly a 2-year absence from the field? I'm willing to bet that he can. And Jacksonville is the perfect location to reignite his career. The Jags are a locked-in top 10 offense with Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson, and Calvin Ridley should be the main beneficiary. With this next guy, we still have some time to invest in him, but I definitely wish that I had drafted him more sooner. Rachaad White's ADP is still very reasonable right now. He's being drafted around RB27 behind guys like David Montgomery and Isaiah Pacheco. He is a steal for his potential upside. White's work on the ground in 2022 was horrible. There's no sugarcoating it. And while his yards per catch was also quite terrible, we cannot ignore the capability. The volume should come down a little bit because Tom Brady's attempts were absolutely outrageous, but we are talking a 3-down back with true receiving upside. If White sees the majority of work out of the backfield, he has legitimate top 12 upside. A huge reason why I wish I'd stacked my teams with Rachaad White sooner is that out of all the young running backs who could get nuked by one of the free agent veterans, White is actually the safest guy out there. Where guys like Breece Hall and Ramondre Stevenson are at risk because their teams are actually trying to compete, Tampa Bay seems fully aware that they have 0 chance of being competitive. They've got major cap issues. They are likely on the tank for Caleb track, and they already released Leonard Fournette. There is 0 logical reason why they should sign another veteran. As fantasy managers start to feel more comfortable with White's role being locked in, his ADP will rise. This is the cheapest you will be able to get him. Javonte Williams is another guy that I regret not drafting sooner. Drafting a player right after a torn ACL is a risky strategy, but when the risk is baked into his ADP, I'm a lot more willing to invest in that player. I recently did an early round bust video, and one of the potential busts I talked about was Breece Hall. So why am I so concerned about Breece Hall but ready to go in guns blazing for Javonte Williams? ADP. I will say it again. Say it with me. ADP. We are not getting any kind of discount on Breece Hall. Hall is being drafted as an RB1. Javonte Williams is being drafted as a RB3. And yes, the severity of the injury is different for every player, but a torn ACL is a torn ACL. The odds of either one of them coming in and popping up in week 1 with 30 fantasy points is slim. But at Javonte's ADP, we are allowing for that rehab ramp up. After everything that happened with J.K. Dobbins last year, people are understandably very hesitant with Javonte Williams, and that has made his value very reasonable. But Javonte Williams actually came out recently and said that he will be ready to go for training camp. That's a big win. Now take it with a grain of salt because most players think that they're ready to go, even when they're clearly not. But if Javonte Williams does actually start training camp somewhat healthy, his ADP is going to rise and we will not be able to get him for that lovely discounted ADP. I wish I had drafted more of him sooner. And my final player is Romeo Doubs. This is more of a preemptive ADP rising. I am calling it right now. Romeo Doubs is going to have another dramatic jump in ADP during the preseason games. We saw it last year when Doubs rose to draft relevance as one of the favorite late round sleepers. And to his credit, he did immediately earn a significant snap count, playing over 80% of snaps weeks 3 through 8 before getting injured. Those results were spotty, but Doubs earned a role within the Packers offense and is the clear wide receiver 2. And that role is one that he has retained heading into 2023. Now, there were some concerns that the arrival of second-round draft pick Jayden Reed would cut into Doubs' upside, but all signs are indicating that Doubs could be the target hog in this offense, with Christian Watson serving as more of the big play guy and Reed as more of a slot role. What makes me wish that I had more shares of Romeo Doubs is that I am admittedly more bullish on the Packers as a whole. There's been an expectation that the Packers will be on the struggle bus all season long, but those aren't my expectations. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Jordan Love is Aaron Rodgers and that this is going to be some kind of elite offense, but this can be an average offense with an average quarterback play, and that's perfectly all right. The Packers wide receivers will put up good numbers at value if that happens. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe and like the video, and comment below which of these players you are in or out on, and stick around for more fantastic off-season content.